Hey friends, I'm Jess Connolly. I'm an author, a coach, a Bible teacher, and a local church leader, and I love talking to real people who know what it means to have full lives, but also want to walk in abundance. This podcast is for you. It's not my podcast, it's ours. It's for people who crave lighthearted conversations and deeply spiritual truth. It's for people who are busy, tired, waiting, growing, dreaming, working, or praying about what's next. Wherever you're listening from, if it's quiet, mundane, or busy, I am praying for you, and I'm so glad you're here. Let's go. Listen, whether you are a mom, a nurse, a student, a church worker, or an astronaut, we all feel insecure about our capacity to do our job from time to time. The problem is that when we don't feel confident at work, we don't just miss out on good vibes. We often wound ourselves and others with our insecurity. When we stop boldly entering into what God has called us to, it's not humility, it's hiding. So no matter your vocation or your calling, this episode is for you. We all get timid, but we've been given a spirit of power and love and a sound mind. Let's use those gifts and confidently move into our work. All right, ladies, we are talking about how to feel confident at work today. And again, this is no matter your work. This is if you're a stay-at-home mom, if you're a nanny, if you're a student, whatever your life looks like, we all feel insecure when we move into our calling sometimes. And I have brought my work wife / work husband, I feel like she's both, bestie, friend, co-leader in Go and Tell Gals, Anna Victorson, on today's episode. Anna, thanks for joining us.
I'm so happy to be here and to be all of those things.
Yes. I mean, really the and to my Leslie, if you're familiar with Parks and Rec.
That's it. That sums it up.
There isn't a fictional TV show relationship that I feel like would better define our relationship.
It's not quite that, like, dramatic.
Yeah.
But
I'm not, like, quite as chill as Leslie, like not quite as happy all the time.
She's like you times a lot.
Yeah.
But like it wouldn't be TV if it wouldn't be good TV if she wasn't.
Exactly.
You know?
She was just a little normal.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like you are very similar to Ian.
I am similar to Ian, like, for sure.
That's not a huge
She is probably one of my closest TV personalities.
Yeah. Like chill, a little aloof, reserved, still warm.
Yeah.
Good at her work. Doesn't get into drama, just like handles her business.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But like puts up with some shenanigans.
Yeah.
Every now and again.
Yeah, we like shenanigans.
Yeah,
we like some tomfoolery.
We're not sad about shenanigans. Okay. I didn't tell you this, but here's one reason why I think you're the perfect person for this podcast.
Tell me.
Okay. So Anna and I have worked together for 6 years. We just had our 6-year anniversary. Was it 6 or 7? 6.
It was August 2018.
August 2018. We just had our 6-year work anniversary. I don't know what that was. And I brought you out, some might say. I rescued you from a better paying, more stable job with benefits to come
rescue me. You did.
but come to ministry with me.
You sold it like a champ. You're like, hey, I can pay you less. I can give you fewer hours, but here's why you ought to be with me. And I jumped.
You did.
I jumped.
Which was literally like God's actual gift and grace to me and to Go and Tell Gals and to women everywhere. But one thing I really enjoyed about working with you those first few years is the amount of times that you would clarify, like, listen, it's not like this in the secular world. Like how you guys do it in ministry, how you guys do it in like church world, we don't play like that. And that was really helpful for me. Yeah. And I feel like we talked about that a lot the first few years.
Yeah.
And I would say the way that you showed up to work, feeling competent and knowing what your job was, and like maybe encouraging and calling other people up to do the same, including myself, was really inspiring because obviously this is something you and I talk about a lot, but like especially within the church, especially within Christian community, I think sometimes our misunderstanding of humility is what makes us lack confidence. You know,
Yeah.
we feel like we can't come in and say, I know how to do this job. God's placed me here on purpose.
Yeah.
We feel like that's not okay.
Yeah.
I am constantly amazed and inspired and called up. We tell this story all the time, but I think it was an event was one of the first big things we did together. And we hosted the event, right? Do you know what story I'm going to tell?
Yeah. Oh, well, I actually don't know if I know the story you're going to tell.
Well, I think it was an event we hosted and it went really well. And it was great. And it was like well put on. And afterwards, I came to you and I was like, Anna, that was really great. You did a really good job. You did great at that. And you said, did you think I would not do it excellently? Do you remember that?
I don't.
And I remember being like, it was, you said it so gently, you weren't offended, but you were like, did you think I wouldn't? Like, did you think I wouldn't? And I was like, oh.
Yeah. We don't do things poorly. Like,
I love, which is like such an honest and true thing to say. You know,
like if we're going to do something, we're going to do it well. Yeah.
Yeah. To the glory of God.
Yeah.
For the good of others.
Yeah.
Okay, come on. Tell somebody. Last week on the podcast, we talked about ambition. To be honest, I think that is one of my favorite episodes to date. So if you haven't listened to episode 52, where we talked about is ambition a dirty word, go back and listen to that. But one thing at the end of the episode, my sister and I talked about, I had her on that episode. One thing we talked about was this idea that gymnasts get hurt when they don't go full out. So when they basically play small, it's actually very dangerous for their bodies when they kind of hold back or withhold. So what I think is interesting, if you haven't already listened to that episode, go listen to it. But this episode to me is like, okay, so how do we go full out? How do we run into our calling, again, no matter what it is, with some God-given boldness and clarity and confidence? So I've got 5 things, but you're the real expert here. So I'm going to name the 5 things and then I want you to expound on them as well.
Great.
Okay. Here's our first one. I think this is huge and I can't get over how much of a struggle this is for a lot of different people in a lot of different roles. So my first kind of tip for moving confidently into your work is you need to know your role. You need to know your role. You need to know what your role is not. You need to know what success looks like in your role. I think a lot of times, do you feel this? Do you feel like we know a lot of people in our world that are like, I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to be doing here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why do you think that happens?
That's a good question. I think especially in our world, looking at our team or comparable teams, I think if it's a smaller team, sometimes it's a lot, you're wearing a lot of hats.
Yeah.
And so it can become kind of gray or fuzzy of what are the top priorities because you are kind of picking up slack in other areas.
Yeah.
And so it can just I think over time morph into suddenly you're just your hands are in a lot of things and you're kind of wait, what is even my actual job?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I also do think that can happen large scale in big businesses as well. But yeah, it's definitely having clarity on what your actual role is, what your top priorities are. But like you said, it's also knowing what it's not and knowing what is not yours to hold. And that's probably the hardest thing for me.
Yeah.
Because I don't like to see balls drop. But sometimes you gotta let balls drop if they're not yours to juggle. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you got to. Okay, I think one reason it might happen, even in bigger businesses or in in all sorts of different places in the workforce, is because we use nebulous words for roles that we don't really know what they mean.
For sure.
I'll give you an example. I am really under the impression that many of us just need to go back to simple definitions. But I think you and I have talked about this before. A lot of people don't really know what marketing is.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Liz, who helps with our marketing, and Victoria, they know what marketing is. But I hear a lot of people tell me I have a job in marketing. And then when they describe it, I'm like, that isn't marketing.
Yeah.
I don't think you're clear on
or
what
maybe
marketing
the
is.
entire business is marketing, but you are actually doing X. You are actually a project manager, or you're actually a operations
Yeah.
specialist, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. But if you're a synergy coordinator, like it's not really your fault
Yeah.
that you don't understand your role.
Right.
You
'Cause
know?
what is synergy? What are we doing here?
If you're an upper management liaison, like what? Liaise who?
Yeah.
You know?
I'd just be drinking a lot of coffee. I think.
Yes. I actually think that happens to a lot of people.
I think I would wear a really nice outfit and sip a lot of coffee.
Yeah. Yeah. I think this also happens in non-vocational roles. I think this happens in motherhood. I think we need, even as moms, we need clear definition of like, what is my role here? You and I have talked about this in the past. We've talked about it on the podcast. For me, for example, like a huge shift I made in my mothering this year is that I don't anymore assume that it is my job and or within my capacity to disciple my kids. Yeah. And I've explained this on past podcasts. And the reason why is because people consent to be discipled. And so I can create a warm environment for my kids. I can show them what it looks like for me to walk with God. I can provide a safe and calm atmosphere for them. I can be their scheduler. I can, be their grocery provider. I can even be their coach and their encourager. But unless my kids come to me and say like, hey, will you disciple me in the ways of Jesus? That is actually going to put a pressure on me and put a role on me that maybe I can't fulfill. So then I'm always going to feel like a failure.
Yeah.
So I think even like as moms, being able to pause and saying like, what is my role? What has God asked me to do? And maybe how has that changed from season to season to season? Like I would say for me, my kids are 11 to 17. My role right now is coach. Mm-hmm. I'm not cutting their food. I can barely cut my own. Just kidding. What's that life? I'm not cutting grapes.
Sidebar.
I'm not changing diapers, but I am kind of helping them move forward in their individual roles and lives.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think even knowing that as a student, like, can you define for yourself, is your job to get straight A's or is your job to learn? Mm-hmm. And those two things are so different and shiftable. Like, for example, you can get an A in a class and not learn a single thing. Yeah. I'm going to be honest. I mean, I'm a student right now. My goal's both.
Yeah.
Just giving it to you straight.
Yeah.
I just want one part of my life where I can win really easily.
Yeah. That's okay. You can want that.
But I am trying to learn. But I am trying to get A's.
That's good.
Yeah.
I was not really trying to learn when I went to college. I was trying to get straight A's.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just helpful to know. Yeah. And maybe some people would be listening and say, I just want to get straight A's. I don't want to learn. And that's your business. I need to learn because I'm like paying for it as grad school.
Yeah. That's important. You want to learn.
I think another really important caveat of this that works in a secular environment, works in like spiritual work, it works in a non-vocational calling, is do you know what success looks like in this role? Mm-hmm. Can you define that? And is it something that's within your grasp? Because if it's not, if you're assuming, for example, using the kids as an example, if I said, okay, success for me as a mom is all my kids are following Jesus and obsessed with God and in ministry, that's actually not in my control.
Right.
That's a lag measure. That's not a lead measure. It's not something I can make happen. So I'm going to continually feel like a failure if I don't do that. Mm-hmm. But do you know in your role what success looks like? And I think within the workplace, it can be really helpful to just ask people. Yeah. Asking your boss, asking the people around you, like, what would it look like if I did my job amazing this week? What would be some of the outcomes of that? Mm-hmm. I think that could be helpful. Do we know that for our roles at Go Ahead and Tell Gals? We'll get back to you. I think we know it for everybody else's, maybe not ours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's also why we set very like clear goals and like tangible tasks each week.
Yeah.
Because even like on a big, large, nebulous scale, if we don't know, at least it's helpful to know like workload wise what success is, you know?
Yeah.
To know like this is what I should be doing. If I accomplish this week, I am doing a good job.
Yeah.
You know?
That's good. Using our business as an example, I told you and some of our team this a week ago that I realized God helped me make an important distinction in my head because I'm a coach, because at Go and Tell Girls we do coaching, because we even lead other coaches and train other coaches. I had kind of falsely assumed that my job all the time was coach, and that if I was doing a good job, everybody would feel coached all the time. And then I realized if I do that, if I constantly run my life as a coach, not only will I feel exhausted and burnt out, and I'll be coaching people who didn't ask for it, but also I will not be the business owner, which is actually really important for people to keep coaching.
Right.
So my role is I have to function somewhat like a small business owner.
Yeah.
You know, and that is actually those are different roles and responsibilities and rhythms than a coach. Okay, number 2. This one's big. I just think to feel confident in work, the second thing is you cannot give any air to lies or old narratives. You just can't.
Yeah.
You can't play around with it.
Yeah.
What are some of the lies or narratives that come up for you either in motherhood or in work? Deep question.
It's a deep, dark question.
I think I can say some of mine while you think. I mean, that one I just shared is a starter. I have to be everybody's coach all the time. That's a lie. A big lie over my life. Some of this I've already said on the podcast, so I don't mind being a little deep. I always feel not intelligent enough. And if I go into our work kind of believing or agreeing with that lie or obsessing over it as a person who writes books and communicates for a living, I will live into that lie. I will just look for reasons to believe that I'm dumb. And that's not true. You know, I mean, number one, all of us have brains given by God. And so he decides our mental, intellectual capacity. Yeah. But I would say another one for me is I have to be the coach all the time. I'm not smart enough. I think that like things always work out medium for me. You know, like it's always just kind of be middle of the road. And I would say like that's an example of how you helped me with that day. You said, do you think we would not do this excellently? Because in my mind, I just think of myself as more like a mediocre.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Things just kind of go medium for me.
Yeah.
That's how they go.
Yeah.
Not gangbusters, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. How about you?
Good. I think my biggest one that is I can kind of apply to like multiple areas is that, and then you'll laugh when you hear this because you'll understand why I said that. You know, do you think we want to do it excellently? I think a lie I tell myself is that like, if I do not do something the best, like I'm going to break it. So like motherhood, my job. Yeah. That's how I was like in school or in different things. Like if I did not get straight A's, like everything was going to blow up. If I did not do so much research and figure out what I thought was like the best sleep schedule for my baby and the best way to feed my baby and the best everything for her, like she's gonna break and like she's not gonna thrive. And like same with work, like if I do not figure out how to do something the best, if we don't give it our all, like it's just gonna blow up. It's not like we're gonna do it medium. It's like if we don't do it perfect, it's not gonna work at all. You know.
Yeah. And I will say even like a deeper one for me on that, back to mine, that I'm like hearing as you say it. And I've told you this before. Mine is that if I do things excellently, I won't have friends. That like I'll be so intimidating. You know, a lot of people are scared of failure. I'm scared of success.
Yeah.
Because I feel like people will move away from me.
Yeah.
If I do well.
Yeah.
I want to be approachable. And like, what a lie that you can't be excellent and approachable.
Right.
What a lie that you can't experience success and have humility. Okay, that got deep fast. Okay, let's take a break right here. We'll be right back. Hey friends, it might be time for you to turn your calling and your gifting into a career. If you are a coach, or you think you might be a coach, or if you perceive that you have the gift of strategic encouragement, the Go and Tell Gals Coaching Certification Program is designed for women who feel called to coach, but need the tools and community to make it happen. When you go through our Go and Tell Gals Coaching Certification Program, you gain access to use our 6-step coaching method. You walk with a supportive cohort as you develop your coaching ministry or career, and you gain access to an incredible community where you get ongoing coaching resources throughout the year. You only have one more week to apply for the Go and Tell Gals coaching certification program for 2024. We only offer this training once a year. We would love to have you train with us online and join us for our immersive retreat here in Charleston, South Carolina. If you're ready to apply, go to goandtellgals.com/licensing or click the link in the show notes. All right, coming back. We're buttoned up.
We're good.
We're better.
thriving.
We're okay.
Happy. We're light.
Number 3. This one it's so key. If you want to feel confident at work, whatever your work is, ask for help, ask for wisdom, ask for clarity. Ask for help, ask for wisdom, ask for clarity. I cannot tell you how defeated I get when someone comes to me either in work or in life and they are at a place of extreme fatigue or wanting to quit or exhaustion or discouragement, or they have maybe even massively failed. And I realize that they could have circumvented that situation by asking for help. Mm-hmm. It's such a bummer.
Yeah.
It's such a bummer. And I don't know why we think we have to be great at everything the first time.
Yeah. Not even great, just know how to.
Just know how to do it.
Yeah.
It's so wild. It's so crazy.
Or maybe not even the first time. Maybe it's the third or fourth time and you're realizing I'm not getting this.
Yeah.
Or that person seems to be doing it with ease and I'm really struggling. Right. What am I missing?
Right. Yeah. To me, I think a lot of people are scared to ask for help because of what it will mean for them. But to me, there is nothing more wise than someone coming, even maybe somebody who's great at something already, and saying hey, I've already gotten some of this figured out, but I'd love to hear how you do it.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear what you think about it. I'm going to tell you the silliest example of this ever, but this is a story that has stuck in my mind. I'm going to say 15 years. Could have been more. It is the silliest story. I've never told anyone this. It just lives in my mind rent free. I think about it twice a week. Maybe 15 years ago, maybe more. I lived in Seattle at the time. I had a best friend. Her name was Marilee. I was talking to Marilee's sister one day about the way I did my hair, or she was talking about the way I did my hair. And she was like, I love how you do your hair. I love how you curl it, whatever. Who knows? And she said, will you tell me how you do that curl, whatever situation? I don't even know what kind of curl it was. And I looked at her and her hair was flawless. And I was like, yeah, but your hair looks amazing. However you're doing it is working. And she said, yeah, well, I have this and then now I want that. I don't know why that sentence has lived in my mind rent free for 15 years. She was like, yeah, I have this style. Now I want that one as well.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I got this.
One does not equal the other.
But I want that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
I
have my way of doing it. I'd love to hear yours.
Yeah.
Because maybe it'll help me.
Yeah.
I feel like we encounter this a lot. I want to applaud you because you've led our team really well in this. And here's how. In a lot of ways, I always say I'm like a dinosaur on the internet. I've been using Instagram since it started. I've been blogging and doing things on the internet for a really long time. I've been teaching the Bible publicly for 20 years. We coach women. So in a lot of ways, we could kind of get to this place where we say well, we're the experts. We know what we're doing. And you've led our team so well in reaching out to other people who do what we do. Some who've maybe been doing it for a fraction of the amount of time and said hey, can we learn from you guys? And that has blessed me a ton to just say yeah, we know what we know, but we want to know more,
Yeah.
Again, I don't want to keep harkening back to motherhood, but I think it's a great example of a calling and a job that isn't necessarily a paid vocation. I mean, let's be honest, it's not. There's no necessarily about it. It is not, in fact, a paid vocation. In fact, it will cost your blood, sweat, and tears. But are there ways you've experienced the freedom of this in motherhood, of asking for help or wisdom or insight?
Definitely. Yeah. I think that anytime I have gone through some sort of a challenging season, whether it was, I don't know, a sleep regression or even now as we're entering toddler years and, we're starting to have some tantrums and some other things that we're experiencing. You can get so stuck in your four walls that you're in. And anytime I am able to just kind of like have the perspective to look outward and ask trusted voices, I've learned to, not go to the internet for everything, to not go to people who don't know you or your life well. But if I go to like my sister or a friend or someone who I trust who has been there before, sometimes they're able to give helpful advice. Honestly, sometimes they're not.
Yeah.
But even just hearing from them, like their past wisdom of like, hey, I went through that too. You're in the trenches. It gets better.
Yeah.
Or just perspective to know like you're going to get through it or get to the other side of it. Even that is helpful.
Yeah. About the tantrums, when you brought it up to me, I definitely don't feel like I had advice for you. And I remember just thinking like, if that helps, I don't remember.
Yeah. And and honestly, that does help. And I think at first in motherhood, that doesn't help when people are like, it goes by so fast. You're going to be fine. I'm like, you don't understand. This is going to do me in.
Yeah.
But the longer you are in motherhood, the more you do understand how quick different seasons, spells, whatever you want to call them, go.
Yeah.
And so even hearing that and knowing like, you don't remember them now. Like they were that short-lived that, or, maybe you just block them out of your mind mentally, which maybe that'll happen too. And that's okay.
But I think mostly what I felt with that is when you're in it and when your kid is like starting to have temper tantrums, you do actually feel like, well, this is a reflection on me. This is a reflection on them, their future. And then you're like, oh, they're going to be fine.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of more things.
Yeah.
That you're going to have to be like, okay, that's not who we are.
Right.
Right. Super interesting. Okay. But you touched on something that I want to come back to. And that is when it's time to stop asking for help or maybe stop listening to advice. So I want to touch on that in just a second. But I do want to say, Nick and I have remarked many times in ministry and in leadership, for us, I wish that we didn't notice this so much, but we really notice when people don't ask questions. And now we kind of have a shorthand. And if he is having coffee with someone, or if he's spending time with someone, or he's discipling someone, we kind of have a shorthand. If I say like, how did it go? And he says like, well, they didn't ask me any questions. And that doesn't mean, I mean, we're pastors, like we get questioned a lot. But if we're spending time with people who we're trying to pour into and they're not saying like, can you give me insight about this? Or can you give me wisdom about this? Or like, what would you say about this? We just know like, we don't really have their heart, like, and that's a bummer. But I just think it's a little bit of a practice that's lost these days too, That being said, I want to just give a tiny caveat for, I have experienced women and seasons in my own life when I have gotten stuck in a cycle of a lack of confidence because I keep asking questions, and I think only guided by Holy Spirit can we know for us when that's right and when that's wrong, can we know like, okay, I'm asking everybody else how to do something and God's just told me to like, go do it. Yeah. But when you know,
for sure.
And when you are not at a place where you are porous and able to continue receiving advice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. At some point, like it can get paralyzing.
Yeah.
It gets kind of like we were talking about wedding planning in our office the other day, and we were talking about how there are so many beautiful wedding styles. There are so many beautiful wedding color palettes.
Yeah.
You could choose a million different ones and they would all be beautiful and you would like them all. So at some point you just have to make the decision.
Yeah.
Is this making
It is making.
Okay.
It is making
So
sense.
at some point you just
like
have
there's
to,
a million flowers.
There are a million flowers. There are a million shades of green or pink or whatever. There are a million venues. At some point you have to just decide this beautiful one is the one that I want, because there is likely no like best answer. There's no best whatever. And I think that can also happen when you are receiving insight.
Yeah.
Yes, it is good to ask for wisdom. It is good to ask for help. But at some point you are just going to be a sponge that is leaking.
Yep.
And you've got to just take what you have gathered from trusted people and decide how is best for you to implement it and move forward, or else you'll just get like paralyzed there in all of the information overload.
yeah, that's not it.
Yeah.
That's not it. Okay, number 4, I think this is the key. I think this might be, for me, my top tip about how to feel confident at work. And I think you might agree. If you feel like you're struggling to feel confident in your job, in your vocation, in your calling, whether you're paid for it or not, if you can have unbridled passion about the mission, it will make up for a lack in almost any area. If you really, really, really care about it and you let that care kind of like break open and seep into everything you do, it shifts everything. And the number one reason why is because when you really care about the people you're serving or what you're building or what you're growing or where it's going, that will give you vision, insight, wisdom, direction, and excellence.
Yeah.
It will increase all of those things. But I think a lot of times the reason why I think it's so important to even say this, to say like, hey, if you want to be confident in your work, you're going to have unbridled passion about the mission, is because a lot of times our lack of confidence, our fear, our insecurity is so loud, we don't have the mental or emotional energy to care. So we're walking into every space thinking like, I stink at this. I'm not ready. I'm not the girl for the job. I can't do this. I'm not the one. They're all going to know I'm a fraud. I'm an imposter, blah, blah, blah. And if that's your narrative, then you don't have time to think like, this matters so much. This is so important. How have you seen this play out at Go and Tell Gals and in our work?
I think in basically any product we've ever launched,
Yeah.
everything we were doing was new to us.
Yeah.
So when we launched the podcast for the first time, when we launched any of our coaching programs that we've done, when you care about the people that you're serving, when you are passionate and are clear on what you are communicating, how you are serving, what you are providing to them, it just like fills you up to like figure it out.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like at some point you just, if you're very clear that that is what you are supposed to do, it just gives you the equipping to be like, I'm going to figure it out, you know? And that's what we say, everything is figure outable. Everything is Googleable.
Yeah. Even
if you feel like your thing is brand new, like there's going to be inklings of other things of like how you can do it. Like you can figure out how to launch a podcast. You can figure out a platform to launch a coaching program. You can, whatever it is, you can figure it out, even if you have never done it before. But I do think like to get that know-how and just that like grit to do it, you just have to have the passion to care.
Yeah, I agree. And you know what else? I mean, I'll just say as a leader in the church, as a boss, I will put up with a vast amount of incompetence if somebody cares about what we're doing.
Yeah, for sure.
That is not something I experience a lot. You know what I'm saying? But I would, you train the willing.
Yes, absolutely. And that kind of goes back to point 3, because at first when I read point 3, that asks for help or wisdom, I a little bit was like, I don't know, because again, going back to the like everything is Googleable and figure outable. Yeah. And even like I've heard certain workplaces that say like, like look 3 places before you ask for help, or read this before. And I do also subscribe to that. I also like don't ask because it's like the lazy thing to do or like the easy way out. If you have information at your fingertips to figure it out yourself, do it. Yeah. But it also, in those instances, it's very clear if you are asking questions out of true like care and passion versus like laziness. You know?
Yeah.
It's really very clear.
Yeah, that's good. That's a great point. You're right. Because this, I have like one pet peeve in my whole life. I'm just outing myself. I think I've said on the podcast before. My one pet peeve in my whole life is when people ask what time it is. I do not like it because I'm like, we live in 2024. There's a clock everywhere. You just open your little eyes. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. There's a clock everywhere.
Now, to the point where now if I ask what time it is, I literally say like, I do not have my phone by me. Because I want you to know I'm not just being lazy. I know you have the time. No one in our office
ever does it in a lazy way. I just have like weird triggers from my past of people that I'd be like, just look at a clock. And really who it really bothers me is my kids. Because I'm like, you just use your very precious legs and walk and go look at the oven. You know what I'm saying? And I've bought 3 of you phones. So like, do your business. Anyhow, I'll rant to over. But for example, like, right, that's where those need to be combined, because also in coaching, you and I will experience, like, a lot of people will ask us questions that were like, that you could have Googled that, you know?
Yeah.
And now what you're doing is putting an onus on me where you're asking me to basically Google something for you. And so you're right. Because when you really care about it, you're going to like do a little bit of the work on your own. And then when you need insight, you're going to get insight.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good. That's good. Okay. Number 5 is emotional, but I think it really helps. And it's a life principle that I actually just think will make everybody feel more confident. And it's be a there you are person, not a here I am person. And the thing is, like, I think when we hear that, we're all like, yeah, I don't want to be a here I am person. But the problem is when we let our insecurity get loud in our life, every room we enter, whether we like it or not, whether we want to admit it or not, we're coming in and saying like, here I am.
Even if you're not being like loud about it. If you are feeling insecure, if you're having like whatever feelings, you are thinking about yourself.
Yep. When you come in and you're like looking at your phone and your eyes are down and you feel sheepish, or like you don't want to talk to somebody, or you don't know how to like go see other people. Number 1, it like continues this narrative that you're the only one who feels that way, and that you're the only person who needs somebody to come take care of you, or like come see you or come find you. And I just think, again, in the year of our Lord 2024, that we, as especially if you're a woman who's listening to this podcast, I just want you to know you're equipped to walk into every room and see other people, and to some degree, not like gaslight yourself, not pretend that you're not a whole person, not pretend like you're not having issues or struggles, or that you don't feel fear. But the point is, courage happens when we feel fear and do it anyways. Yeah. And so I tell the people this all the time because they don't believe me, but I'm actually a huge introvert. There is a huge part of me. My flesh would be deeply served if I went to a church where I could walk in and sit on the back row and not talk to anyone. I'd be deeply served. But instead, I have to go into rooms and say, like, this is actually about the communal experience of the church. So let me go in and go say hey to some people, even though it's not a super comfortable thing for me. I'd much rather have a microphone in my hand than walk up to 5 people before church starts and say like, hey, what's your name? Where are you from? But I can do that because it's about all of us. It's about them. It's about the Lord. And I think the thing is, that doesn't just make you feel confident. It helps you come into agreement with that spirit of power and love and self-control that we have access to.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and this kind of goes back to like a little bit asking for help, but just asking questions about other people if you're not sure how to do that. Like, I have a set list of questions that really help me when I'm feeling stuck, or when I'm feeling insecure, when I'm feeling social anxiety, or when I'm feeling like too tired and would rather just be about myself. Just asking people like, hey, how are you doing? How's your soul? If I don't know them, where are you from? What brought you here? You know, all of those are helpful tools.
For sure.
Yeah. Listen, this is the thing. No matter your calling, we hope you feel confident. No matter your calling, we hope you know and can agree with the fact that God has placed you where you're at on purpose. Fun, just helpful mention if you didn't know, a lot of these principles that we're talking about come from You Are the Girl for the Job, which is a book that I wrote for helping people feel confident and competent where God has placed them in the midst of their weaknesses and in the midst of their problems. So if you haven't read You Are the Girl for the Job, there's a fun little plug. It's a nice little calling up. You can also get it on audiobook, and it'll be like you're having a personal coaching session with me, which would be honestly fun for me if we could do that. But since I can't do it for everybody, You Are the Girl for the Job. And will you pray for our friends that they would feel confident and bold at the work God has called them to?
Yes, I'd love to.
Thank you.
God, we thank you for just every single woman who is listening to this podcast. We know that you placed it on her ears for a purpose, and we know that you placed her where she is at for a purpose. And we just pray that you would help her believe that you would help her to find just fresh confidence, fresh vision, fresh insight into where you have placed her, and that she would just be able to boldly keep taking steps toward where you have called her and who you have called her to. Thank you.
So good. Thank you, God. Amen. Friends, I'm so grateful you listened to today's episode. Thanks for spending time with me. It would mean the world to me to connect with you. So you can send me a DM on Instagram at Jess A. Connolly, or head to my website, jessconnolly.com, for more ways to connect. If you have a minute to subscribe and leave a review of the podcast wherever you listen, it would massively help us reach more people with the good news that they can live fully awake. Let's go.